I never imagined my own daughter-in-law could turn a family celebration into a courtroom of betrayal. I thought as I walked into the sunlit kitchen that morning, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mixing with the faint scent of blooming gardenias outside. The house was buzzing with excitement. My eldest son's birthday was supposed to be a day of laughter and stories from years past, yet a subtle tension clung to the air like the summer humidity through the open windows. I had spent the better part of the week preparing, making sure every detail, from the arrangement of the dining table with polished silverware to the bouquet of roses in the center, was perfect, hoping to create a memory that would be cherished by the whole family. But as the clock struck 11, I noticed the way my daughter-in-law's smile seemed too calculated, the way she moved around the kitchen, commenting on dishes I had lovingly prepared, but her words carried a sharp edge under the guise of friendliness. It was in that moment, standing in the warm light that filtered through the French doors, that I felt a familiar, sinking realization. This wasn't going to be the joyful occasion I had envisioned. As I served the first slice of cake, I caught a glimpse of her whispering to my son, a conspiratorial glint in her eyes that made my stomach twist. My heart ached, not just for myself, but for the family I had nurtured, the family I had held together with patience and love. And yet, even in this initial wave of disappointment, I felt the quiet resolve stirring within me, a determination to navigate the storm with dignity and grace, to respond not with anger, but with a calm intelligence that had been honed through years of facing challenges far greater than a simple birthday dinner. I reminded myself of the lessons I had learned, about patience, observation, and the importance of keeping one's own counsel, knowing that the true measure of strength is revealed not in reaction, but in poised action. As the laughter rang out around the room, tinged with awkward pauses that only I seemed to notice, I held my composure, offering gentle words and smiles, all the while taking careful note of the subtle maneuvers at play. The morning sun glinted off the polished countertops, reflecting not just light, but the quiet acknowledgement that I was no longer just a bystander in my own home. I was a strategist in a delicate dance, aware of every move, every glance, every carefully chosen word, and preparing to act in a manner befitting someone who had dedicated a lifetime to holding her family together, only to find herself facing an unexpected test of trust and resilience right in her own kitchen. The afternoon sunlight shifted through the curtains, casting long, warm stripes across the hardwood floor as the laughter of my grandchildren echoed from the living room. I could not shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in my chest, the same sensation that had subtly accompanied the morning preparations. I moved through the house with deliberate calm, pouring lemonade into glasses with care, arranging cookies on the tray, all the while observing the small interactions, noting the way my daughter-in-law directed conversation and positioned herself between my son and me during our family stories. Her words were polite, yet each compliment and query seemed orchestrated, as if rehearsed for a performance I had not auditioned for. I reminded myself to breathe and to focus on what truly mattered, the connections that had been nurtured over decades, the memories that were mine to hold and protect. When my son approached with a request to help him set up a new board game in the den, I followed, maintaining a serene presence, attentive to the subtle cues of tension that flickered between whispered exchanges and quiet smiles. The children clambered around us, oblivious to the undercurrents in adult conversation, laughing at simple moments of triumph and defeat, giving me a small reprieve from the swirling thoughts of familial dynamics and hidden motives. I took the opportunity to engage, to recount little stories from their parents' childhoods, hoping to anchor the day in authenticity, in the genuine warmth of shared history. It was during these moments of interaction that I realized my observations were not just about the present misgivings, but also about the patterns that had emerged quietly over the years, subtle signals of behavior, choices, and preferences that spoke volumes if one took the time to notice. I reminded myself that knowledge was a form of empowerment, that understanding the currents beneath the surface allowed me to respond with wisdom rather than react with impulse. As the afternoon waned, the family began preparing for the evening dinner, and I moved with them, assisting where I could, ensuring that the transitions between activities were smooth and comfortable, all while maintaining a quiet attentiveness to the underlying tensions. Every glance, every gesture, and every carefully placed word became a note in a larger symphony of understanding, a melody that I could interpret and respond to thoughtfully. Even as the sun dipped lower and the sky turned shades of gold and rose, I felt a quiet satisfaction in the way I navigated the day, blending warmth and vigilance, honoring the bonds that were still strong, and preparing myself for the moments that would require both resilience and grace, holding firm to the values that had guided me through decades of family life. As the evening lights softened through the lace curtains, the scent of roasted chicken and fresh herbs filled the dining room, creating a warm, inviting atmosphere. I carefully placed the last dish on the table, glancing around at the faces of my family, noting both the familiar expressions of joy and the subtle undercurrents of tension that lingered like a shadow. My daughter-in-law had taken the lead in organizing the seating arrangements, her choices seemingly innocuous, yet I sensed a deliberate pattern in the way she had positioned herself between my son and our youngest grandchild, her laughter occasionally carrying a hint of something rehearsed. I maintained my composure, offering polite comments and encouragement, while my mind quietly cataloged the nuances of every interaction, aware that understanding these small details could provide clarity in navigating the complex dynamics of family life. Conversation flowed around the table, with stories of school achievements, weekend outings, and shared memories of vacations long past, yet I found myself listening with a dual awareness, savoring the warmth of genuine connections while remaining attuned to the subtle shifts in tone and expression that hinted at underlying agendas. When my son raised a toast to family togetherness, I responded with a sincere smile and a nod, feeling the familiar pride in witnessing the people I had nurtured gather in celebration, even as I quietly acknowledged that trust and loyalty sometimes required careful observation and gentle guidance. As the evening progressed, I engaged the children in a storytelling game, weaving tales of resilience and cleverness that had been passed down through generations, subtly reinforcing values of kindness, patience, and awareness. The adults joined in, their laughter mingling with the children's, creating a layered tapestry of sound that reflected both connection and complexity. At one point, I excused myself to the kitchen to refill drinks, observing my daughter-in-law arranging the leftover plates, her movements precise and controlled, yet revealing glimpses of impatience beneath the surface. I reminded myself to respond with calm intelligence rather than visible frustration, knowing that maintaining dignity and composure was the most effective way to navigate these nuanced interactions. Each gesture, each carefully chosen word, became part of a larger understanding of the family ecosystem, reinforcing the lessons I had learned over decades of observing, listening, and engaging thoughtfully. By the time dessert was served, a quiet satisfaction settled over me, a recognition that the day, though not without its subtle tensions, had been approached with wisdom, patience, and a steadfast commitment to preserving both harmony and personal integrity, ensuring that the bonds of family remained intact while preparing for the next chapter with insight and grace. After the dishes were cleared and the children had been sent off to play in the living room with a storybook and their favorite toys, the house grew quieter, yet the subtle currents of tension lingered like an unspoken melody weaving through the rooms. I took a moment to sit in the armchair near the bay window, the late afternoon sun casting a gentle glow over the familiar upholstery, its soft warmth a small comfort against the unease I had sensed throughout the day. My daughter-in-law moved around the dining area, her movements precise and deliberate, arranging the chairs and smoothing out tablecloth wrinkles, her outward calm masking a keen awareness of every glance and gesture that passed in the room. I observed silently, noting how her words and actions seemed designed to shape perception, a reminder that family gatherings often carried layers far deeper than the cheerful surface suggested. I reflected on the years spent building traditions and routines, on the countless moments of laughter and shared meals, realizing that understanding the intentions beneath the gestures was as important as cherishing the visible warmth of togetherness. As my son joined me in the kitchen to discuss dessert options, I listened attentively, offering gentle suggestions while quietly evaluating the subtle ways conversations shifted under my daughter-in-law's influence, always maintaining composure and a measured tone. Even in these seemingly ordinary interactions, I found opportunities to reinforce values of patience, respect, and thoughtful observation, crafting responses that conveyed both kindness and discernment without disrupting the fragile balance of the gathering. The air was rich with the scent of baked apples and cinnamon from the pie cooling on the counter, a comforting reminder of the simple joys that connected us, even amid unspoken tensions. I engaged my grandchildren in a quiet conversation about their school projects, listening intently and praising their efforts, providing a sense of stability and encouragement that grounded the evening in genuine affection. Throughout, I maintained awareness of the subtle dynamics, ensuring that each comment, each gesture, and each smile contributed to an environment that was both warm and resilient, where respect and understanding were quietly reinforced. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the wooden floors, I felt a calm satisfaction in navigating the delicate interplay of personalities and expectations, knowing that patience, keen observation, and thoughtful action would guide me through the complexities of family life, preserving both harmony and personal integrity while preparing to face any challenges that might arise in the days ahead. As the evening shadows deepened and the gentle glow of the table lamp filled the dining room, I found myself reflecting on the subtle currents of the day, the careful dance of words and gestures that had shaped each interaction. The children were now quietly engaged in a drawing activity on the floor, their crayons and markers scattered across a soft rug, and their laughter occasionally punctuated the calm of the evening. I moved through the kitchen, arranging the remaining dessert plates with a deliberate ease, mindful of the delicate balance of energy in the room, aware that even the smallest action could influence the mood and tone of the family gathering. My daughter-in-law approached with a request for assistance in bringing a few items from the pantry, her smile polite and measured, and I responded with a gentle nod, offering guidance where needed while observing her approach and demeanor. Every detail seemed significant: the placement of a chair, the way hands rested on a countertop, the cadence of speech, and I cataloged these moments in quiet thought, understanding that they revealed more than the words alone could convey. As I returned to my seat near the bay window, I glanced out at the soft twilight settling over the backyard, the familiar sights of the garden and the white picket fence offering a comforting backdrop to the unfolding evening. Conversation meandered naturally, touching on shared memories of past holidays, upcoming community events, and the small triumphs and challenges of everyday life. Yet I remained attuned to the subtler signals beneath the surface, discerning intention and emotion with careful attention. I shared anecdotes and observations with a calm, steady voice, weaving warmth and insight into each exchange, nurturing the connection between family members while maintaining awareness of the dynamics that could easily shift the tone. In these moments, I found a sense of quiet strength, a recognition that resilience and thoughtful observation were as crucial as love and affection in preserving family harmony. By the time the evening grew late and the children were gently guided toward bedtime, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment in having navigated the day with grace and intelligence, balancing attentiveness with patience, warmth with discernment, and ensuring that the family space remained a place of care, respect, and stability, even amid the complexities of relationships and the subtle intricacies that defined our interactions. The house had settled into a gentle calm as the night deepened, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards serving as a quiet backdrop to the lingering echoes of the day. I remained seated near the bay window, the warm light of the lamp illuminating the pages of a photo album I had brought out, filled with pictures spanning decades of birthdays, family gatherings, and quiet moments of connection. Each photograph was a reminder of the enduring bonds I had nurtured, of the careful attention I had devoted to creating a sense of home and belonging, even when the challenges of relationships introduced subtle complexities. My daughter-in-law moved quietly through the kitchen, stacking dishes and arranging leftover food with meticulous precision, her movements revealing both efficiency and an underlying awareness of the atmosphere around her. I observed with measured attention, noting the patterns of interaction, the gestures and expressions that communicated more than words alone could convey. When my son entered to discuss plans for the coming weekend, I engaged in conversation with him, offering ideas and suggestions while carefully listening to his perspective, aware of the nuanced influence of his partner in shaping decisions and tone. The children had settled near the living room rug, their small voices sharing imaginative stories and observations from the day, and I felt a sense of quiet contentment in witnessing their engagement and creativity. I took the opportunity to gently guide them in conversation, asking questions that encouraged reflection and storytelling, reinforcing the values of empathy, curiosity, and thoughtful observation that had always been important in our family. Throughout the evening, I remained attentive to the subtleties of communication, the interplay of expressions, gestures, and tone, understanding that these details often revealed intentions, emotions, and priorities more clearly than spoken words. As I reflected on the day, I recognized the importance of maintaining patience, clarity, and measured action, ensuring that each interaction contributed positively to the family dynamic, while preserving my own sense of dignity and awareness. By the time the hour grew late and the house grew quiet, I felt a renewed sense of confidence in navigating the complexities of family life, having approached each moment with care, observation, and thoughtful intention, balancing warmth, patience, and insight to foster connection and understanding, while remaining prepared for the subtleties and challenges that each new day might bring. The house had embraced the quiet of night, and the soft glow of the lamps cast a gentle warmth across the familiar furniture, creating shadows that danced lightly against the walls. I moved through the living room with a careful, measured pace, checking on the children as they lay sprawled over blankets and pillows, their eyes heavy with the day's adventures and laughter. My daughter-in-law returned from tidying the kitchen, placing a gentle hand on my son's shoulder to share a brief comment about tomorrow's plans, her tone polite and measured, and I observed the interaction with quiet attentiveness, noting the subtle ways she managed the flow of conversation and energy in the room. I poured myself a cup of chamomile tea, the fragrant steam curling around me, offering a moment of reflection on the day's delicate balance of warmth and subtle tension. As I settled into the armchair near the window, I considered how each choice, gesture, and word had shaped the family dynamic, understanding that maintaining harmony required both empathy and strategic awareness, a combination honed over decades of experience. The children's soft breathing filled the air as they drifted into sleep, and I felt a quiet sense of fulfillment in having guided them through the day with encouragement, patience, and gentle attention, reinforcing the values of respect, thoughtfulness, and mindfulness that I hoped would continue to resonate in their lives. Conversation between my son and his partner had subsided into the background, leaving the room enveloped in a peaceful hum of contentment and quiet energy. I took this time to quietly organize my thoughts, cataloging the nuances of the day, the subtle exchanges that revealed intentions and emotions, and the small victories of maintaining composure and grace in the midst of familial intricacies. I reflected on the lessons of observation, patience, and strategic engagement, recognizing that these skills were essential in navigating relationships where motives and personalities were layered and complex. As the night deepened and the house settled fully into stillness, I felt a renewed confidence in my ability to manage both the overt and subtle currents within the family, understanding that maintaining dignity, insight, and warmth was the key to fostering trust, connection, and stability. I sipped my tea slowly, letting the quiet of the evening reinforce the knowledge that thoughtful action, careful observation, and measured communication would continue to guide me through every interaction, allowing the family to thrive even amid challenges, and ensuring that I remained a steady, perceptive, and compassionate presence in the home I had nurtured for so many years. The quiet of the night continued to settle over the house, and the soft shadows cast by the lamps created a comforting, familiar atmosphere that seemed to embrace every corner of the living room. I moved slowly through the space, taking a moment to straighten the cushions and adjust the throw blankets, small gestures that brought a sense of order and calm to the environment. My daughter-in-law quietly entered the room to retrieve a small tray of leftover cookies, her movements precise and controlled, and I observed without comment, noting the subtle shifts in tone and expression that accompanied her actions. I poured myself a glass of water and returned to my seat near the bay window, reflecting on the interplay of energy and emotion that had defined the day, understanding that each interaction, no matter how small, contributed to the larger picture of family dynamics. The children were nestled in their blankets, soft whispers of imagination still lingering as they slowly drifted into sleep, and I felt a quiet satisfaction in the way I had guided them through the day, balancing attention with patience and engagement with thoughtful observation. In the background, my son and his partner exchanged low words about plans for the coming week, and I remained attentive, observing the nuances of their communication, aware of the influence of subtle choices in words, gestures, and positioning on the overall tone of the home. I sipped my water slowly, allowing the stillness to deepen my sense of awareness, appreciating the calm that followed a day of careful navigation and thoughtful attention to the needs and emotions of everyone in the household. Each decision I had made, each gentle correction or encouragement offered, and each observation cataloged in my mind contributed to a growing understanding of the family's rhythms and patterns, preparing me to respond wisely and gracefully to future interactions. As the night progressed and the lamp light flickered slightly in the quiet breeze from the open window, I felt a renewed sense of confidence in my ability to manage both the visible and subtle currents of the household, to maintain warmth and integrity while observing and understanding, ensuring that the family environment remained a place of stability, respect, and mindful connection. I allowed myself to savor this sense of quiet accomplishment, knowing that the lessons of patience, perception, and strategic engagement would continue to guide me in nurturing the family bonds I valued so deeply, ready to face each new day with the balance of insight, care, and composure that had come to define my approach to life within this home. The house lay in a serene stillness, the soft glow of the lamps casting comforting pools of light across the familiar furniture, and I moved through the rooms with a quiet attentiveness, observing the subtle interactions that had defined the day. The children had finally succumbed to sleep, their gentle breathing and occasional murmurs filling the spaces with a peaceful rhythm, and I allowed myself a brief moment to appreciate the calm that followed the busy day. My daughter-in-law moved with quiet purpose in the kitchen, gathering a few remaining dishes and placing them neatly in the dishwasher, her efficiency and controlled movements revealing both care and a keen awareness of the household atmosphere. I sipped my tea, the warmth soothing and grounding, and reflected on the careful balance of attention, observation, and gentle guidance that had allowed the day to unfold with grace, despite the subtle currents of tension that occasionally surfaced. Conversation between my son and his partner had dwindled to quiet murmurs as they discussed plans for the coming week, and I listened attentively, noting the small gestures, inflections, and expressions that conveyed intentions and emotions beyond the spoken words. I moved to the living room, straightening a throw pillow and adjusting a blanket, small acts that brought order and comfort, while remaining fully aware of the invisible patterns that shaped family interactions and dynamics. The aroma of the evening's meals lingered in the air, a gentle reminder of the care and thoughtfulness that went into creating a welcoming environment, and I considered the importance of maintaining this warmth while observing and understanding the subtle shifts in tone, attention, and behavior throughout the household. Each smile, each word of encouragement, and each carefully chosen response had contributed to sustaining the harmony and connection among family members, reinforcing the values of patience, empathy, and thoughtful engagement that I had long held. As the night deepened, I reflected on the lessons of observation and strategic care, knowing that understanding the nuanced interplay of personalities and emotions was essential in fostering trust, respect, and meaningful bonds within the home. I felt a quiet satisfaction in the knowledge that the family environment remained a place of stability, warmth, and mindful connection, that my actions had preserved both dignity and harmony, and that the awareness and insight I had cultivated over decades would continue to guide me in navigating the complexities of family life, ensuring that each day could be approached with composure, care, and thoughtful intention.